Okay, and welcome back, students taking Math for Business and Financing Math Applications. And we are covering the theory videos for Chapter 17, which is on depreciation. And we're down to the final concept, which is MACRS, the modified accelerated cost recovery system, right? MACRS for short. Now, as you'll recall, let me just quickly bounce up to my overview slide. Remember from the overview, I had said, when we look at a company's books, they really keep two sets of books. They keep one for their financials and they keep one for their taxes. Okay, they're not necessarily the same. I mean, they're based upon the same information. Okay, but the way the presentation and the rules and things are slightly different from one to the other. So from a tax perspective, we can only use MACRS, all right? But from my financial perspective, we can use a variety of depreciation methods to include MACRS, okay? Now, if you sit and you say, well, if I have to use MACRS for tax, why don't I just use it for my financial aspect of my books, okay? And for very, very small businesses, where the information is not going to go outside of the business, you're not going to take loans, nobody cares, you're just doing this for, to be able to track your own information, then oftentimes, doing the MACRS once and using it for your financials works. But if your information is going to go outside of the business, then, it behooves you to try to present the information in its best light, okay? And in doing that, you use the other methods. So, without going back over the other methods, MACRS was similar to the declining balance method in that we're going to have a rate that we're going to use, okay? But in getting that rate, we're not using it the same, we're not calculating it the same way we did as we did in the declining balance. The government is interested in their taxes, so they set up specific rules and that everybody has to follow. Obviously, and when you were looking at the units of production video theory, I kind of or was it in straight line? I kind of showed that in the first year for straight line, the depreciation was 2,100. For units of production, it was 2,350. And for the declining balance, it was 1,000. Okay, it presented things differently, and different businesses could decide, or even in your business, if you buy automobiles, you could just decide whether you want to use straight line units of production or the declining balance method in order to present your information in its most useful light. Okay. At that moment in time, because you might have bought that car last year and your financial position is different this year. That's on the financial side. On the tax side, the government doesn't want you to be able to say, pick and choose which one you want. When you're going to depreciate an automobile, you're going to depreciate all of the automobiles one way. The same with your computer, your building, your furniture, your equipment, whatever it is, they've decided how you're going to depreciate it for tax purposes. So what they've done is they set up this here schedule, I guess you want to, not a schedule, this here chart that presents the the asset class chart. Okay, that determines how many years you're going to actually depreciate something. Okay, I had gone in my example, I had said, well, for a car, I said, we can determine our useful life to be 3 years. We could determine it to be 4 years. We can determine it to be 5 years. Okay, we were able to determine whatever we wanted, right? But we have to use this asset class chart that the government set up, and we have to look at it, and that will tell us exactly how many, our recovery period or the life of the asset is. And just as, and this is important, just as in, well, not just as, but in straight line and units of production and declining balance, we were able to decide upon what our residual value was, all right? And that's the same as our salvage value, right? We were able to determine how much we wanted that to be. Well, and from a tax perspective, there is no residual value, no salvage value. The useful life at the end, based upon the number of periods, our useful life at the end of that useful life, our residual or salvage value is going to be 0. Okay, so if we're looking at this here, how does this work? So we look at our automobile, we have to come over to this chart and we have to say, okay, where is it here? Okay, so I have to read racehorses more than 2 years old, or any horse, racehorse, 3 years. Okay, and it has an asterisk here, right? And the asterisk says these classes use a 200% declining balance method, switching to the straight line method. Okay, which means, and it's saying using 200% declining balance method. So now you might be thinking, oh, do I have to do the declining balance method? And then it says switch to the straight line method. Do I have to switch to this, straight line method after that? So I'm using 2 methods. No, you don't have to be concerned with that, okay? And you'll see why. That, notice that this is a modified accelerated, okay? Means that in determining the 3-year period, okay, this is sort of what its basis is upon, the 200% declining method and the straight line method, in order to get the rates that you're going to use. Now, you haven't seen the chart for that yet, all right, or at least not in this video, all right? It is in the book. But let's go back to our automobile. So now, we determined that our automobile doesn't sit in this 3-year class, okay? So we read the next one here. Automobiles, not luxury. Taxes, light general purpose trucks, semiconductor manufacturing equipment, computer-based telephone, central office switching equipment, qualified technological equipment, property used in connection with research and experimentation. That's going to have a 5-year recovery life. Okay, and again, it has the asterisk pointing out that that's based upon 200% declining balance and straight line. So if I'm buying an automobile, for using MACRS, it's telling me I have to use the 5-year recovery life. Okay. You can read down through the rest of these. This is railroad, agriculture, fixtures, equipment, and furniture. Okay. We do use a lot of, for most businesses, the common ones are, we have fixtures, equipment, and furniture. So, you'll look at the chart and you'll end up using 7 years for that, okay? As you can see, municipal wastewater, municipal sewers, okay? And then here for, property, residential rental property is a 27.5 year, and non-residential real property is 31.5 years, okay? So what the government does, this here is an abbreviated chart, all right? You can go into your Circular E from the IRS, and you can get a full table with everything that's, listed underneath those, asset classes, those asset types, and to determine how many the recovery period, the useful life is. And if you don't find something on that chart, then you actually would have to call the government and have them tell you, okay? But just be aware that you can call one time and they'll tell you one thing, and you can call another time and someone will tell you something different, okay? And I'm not going to get into that, but just be aware of that. So try to use, common sense and justify. I mean, you're not going to use, if I'm using an automobile, I should be using it for 5 years. If I'm going to buy furniture, I would be using 7 years. I wouldn't say, oh, I want to depreciate my automobile for 7 years, so let me use the 7 years. No, you don't have that choice, okay? You have to use the 5 years. Okay, I'm at 10 minutes right now, and Yeah, I'm going to stop here and go into a second video and try to finish it off in a second video. So just be aware that, if you don't understand something right now, just like the units, the declining balance method, I took 2 videos. Wait until you watch the next video. Then if you don't understand something, watch them again or contact an instructor. But for right now, we're going to stop right now and pick up in the next video.